The Fond du Lac Amateur Radio Club on Monday, May 11th, 2015, invited Jeff Crispino, CEO of NooElec. Jeff's company designs and builds components for SDR, software-defined radio. SDR is rapidly evolving into one of the newest waves in ham radio activities. All you need is a personal computer, an antenna, and about $150 worth of hardware to build a computer-operated receiver for all of your ham radio bands. For more information on the Fond du Lac Amateur Radio Club, call 920-237-1450.
At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Stan, who will introduce our guest speaker for tonight.
Very good. Thanks, buddy. This is Jeff Crispino. Did I get that right? I hope I got it right.
Yeah, I pronounced right.
All right. And Jeff, are you located in Michigan tonight or in Canada?
No, I'm currently in near Toronto, Ontario, Canada, at one of our satellite offices.
All right. Near Toronto, Canada. What's funny is my secretary books this room. I actually work at this institution. She calls it the Amateur Radio Satellite Club. So actually, there is no satellite. I just keep trying to tell her that. But maybe you're a satellite. That's probably what's going to be. So basically, you own the company is NooElec Inc. And so first of all, tell us a little bit about how the company began. I mean, tell us a little bit about your company. You know, obviously we know kind of some of the places where it's located. Sure. But it's the big software-defined radio thing, and just a little bit of how it all got started.
Yeah, absolutely. Primarily, we're actually an engineering company, so we design circuits for OEM partners. So we're the faces behind the scenes sort of thing for a lot of products you probably already purchase and buy. We do the designing here in the U.S. And do some manufacturing here in the U.S. as well as offshore for some cost-sensitive products. But we're a little bit different in that we do design our own products as well. And one of the lines of products that we purchase, which is the primary focus for tonight, is our RF line. In this instance, our software-defined radio series, which is what we'll be demoing today.
Okay, very good. Oh, you're still there. Okay, I thought maybe I lost you. Okay, so again, you got the software-defined radio, and it looks like a very small little dongle, little box. And so again, how it works. But what's the band spectrum on that? I mean, how wide does it go? And obviously, as ham radio operators, we're really interested in monitoring the ham frequencies. And tell us a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So compared to the analog equipment or even some of the digital equipment you guys are probably used to playing with. Even our low-cost series, which would be our NESDR series, November, Echo, Sierra, Delta, Romeo. Our NESDR series, which starts at under $20, you're just talking about really wide bandwidth stuff. At its core, for something like, I believe that Joe was mentioning some of you guys brought some of the dongles in. So, for example, one of this here, which is the black unit called the NESDR Mini. This unit has a capability of from 25 megahertz all the way up to 1,750 megahertz or 1.7 megahertz.
That's a range.
Yeah, absolutely. In conjunction with our up converter, which we'll discuss hopefully later in the lecture, you can extend the range all the way down to about 100 kilohertz. So in conjunction with two units, you're looking at 100 kilohertz to 1.75 gigahertz on the high end. We have other units as well. For example, this unit here, which is a little bit more expensive. It's called the NESTR XTR. Hopefully you guys can see that a little bit.
Very clearly.
This unit's a little bit smaller, but it's a little bit more expensive as well. This is capable of 64 megahertz to approximately 2.3 gigahertz.
Wow.
So on the higher end, it has a lot more range. And of course, in conjunction with the up converter, you can also extend that range down to the HF band, so 100 kilohertz or so.
So when you're working with this, obviously, again, a couple questions regards that is the selectivity on this radio. How does it compare with other amateur radio as far as like a Yaesu, a Kenwood, ICOM, something like that, as far as the sensitivity and selectivity of the units?
It does vary. It does vary depending on how high end of a receiver we're talking. However, in our testing, we have a full laboratory, of course, a lot of RF testing. Considering the cost of performance just cannot be beat by any breakthrough that we've ever seen. Of course, difficult to purchase a radio that costs $20 or so. But in terms of price performance, I mean, anything within even 10 times, like an order of magnitude price, generally the selectivity is much better. We've seen this thing blow away, $2,000, $3,000 rigs, to be honest with you, in our testing. We really look for this product, which is why we decided to produce it and carry it under our own name, which we don't do for a lot of our products.
Okay. So when you hook this in, like the last thing you showed me, looks like it's a USB. Is that a USB? You just plug it in, or is it something?
Yeah, that's correct. All of our NESDR series are direct USB connections. So I'll bring one up here.
USB 2 or
so
USB
for example,
3?
This was previously our most popular unit, which is the NESDR Mini. So if you look behind this cap here, very simple. It's just a simple USB device.
Right.
It just plugs into any standard USB port. It is power plus data, so it does need to connect to a computer or an Android device, something that's able of taking the information from the stick and decoding it, of course. And the only other important interface that would be of importance would be this antenna connector, which on most of our devices is an MCX connector, which is a little on the obscure side. You guys might wonder why we use MCX. But because these units are so wide bandwidth, we find that most standard antenna connectors weren't meant for anything close to those types of bandwidths. For example, standard F connector. VNC does do it, but the bulk of VNC connector becomes a factor in how small we can actually make these devices.
Right.
If you do look at something like this, for example, it's difficult to tell the scale. I wish I had something on me to show you the scale, but if you look at, let's say, a coffee cup versus a unit like this, it's not very big at all.
No.
Maybe an 1.5 inches by half an inch, I would say. So in terms of a BNC connector would pretty much dwarf the entire product. So that's why we tend to use MCX, because it does have the frequency capabilities that we require, as well as the size characteristics.
So does that interface with Apple as well as a PC then? Is it either or?
Yep. There's software for pretty much every major operating system, anything from OS X to all flavors of Linux to pretty much any version of Windows to most versions of Android as well, as long as it supports USB on the go in order to be able to plug in the device.
Sure.
Generally, there's software that's able to use the device as a software-defined radio, correct?
So when you buy the unit, does it come with the, obviously the plugins, the little plugins for your antenna, right? That's what you just showed. So does it come with a little plug-in, and it will convert into what do you say, a VNC or a SQ239 or something like that, or you just have an adapter?
Yeah, we do have adapters available. So by default, in a standard kit, it comes with a small antenna of some sort. Now the antenna, the specifics depends on the model. But here's an example of one of the antennas, which has an MCX connector which plugs directly in. As well as a telescopic.
Oh, okay.
Right, so this comes standard with any SDR that you purchase, and it plugs straight into the unit. Let's see if I can't. So here's an example of the XTR.
Yep.
It's straight into the antenna connector, and there's your set. Plug this end into the computer port, install the drivers, and fire up your SDR software, and there you go.
Stan,
Yes.
how do you hook it to the antenna on your roof?
What's that?
How do you hook it to the antenna on your roof?
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Big antenna.
If you have a SQ239, that's what I'm asking. If you had a regular ham antenna coming down with a RG8 or RG59U or whatever that has a PL259 on it, which would be a regular a connector for the back of a ham radio, can you adapt it that way too? And that's the SQ239 is the female side of the receiving end of the screw-in connector.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it's SO239 and 259, or maybe a PL259. That's what the mating connector is. Yeah, of course, we sell a whole gamut of adapters for MCX on our website as well. That's correct. Starting at about $4, I believe. So the adapters are inexpensive. We don't include them because we find that ham ops have their preferences on what connectors they like to use. A lot of guys do like BNC and SO239, but we've seen the whole gamut of connectors. So.
I'm sure you do. So if somebody wants to get into this, now you show the smaller one, and then it gets a little bigger maybe as at the different versions of this SDR. What kind of cost range are we talking about from the entry level to maybe a little higher end SDR?
So in terms of the NESDR series, we do sell other lines of SDR as well. But in terms of our lower cost SDR radios, they run the range on our website anywhere from $18 for the set, including the antenna, of course, I believe our most expensive unit is about $70 or $80. That would include an aluminum enclosure, includes a TCXO oscillator, a temperature-controlled oscillator, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with. Basically, that allows the unit to have a much more accurate tuning base, which allows your actual tuning of the SDR to be more accurate, of course. So that would be our premier low-cost SDR would run around that price. That's correct.
Now, is that already assembled or is it a kit?
No, already assembled, fully assembled in an enclosure, ready to plug in and ready to go. Yeah, the only requirements on the user end would be plugging in the antenna of your choice, of course, as well as installing your software of choice, of which there's plenty.
So I may have asked you this in the beginning, Jeff, but what was the impetus to want to start this project in the first place, to have this broad range receiver? Was it just one of the things you do normally, or was it just that you're an amateur hobbyist as well, and you kind of wanted to have a receiver, like a beverage receiver of some kind, or?
We actually had a couple of hand ops on staff who I believe they had a couple of low cost SEs. I think it was soft rocks that they used to play around with and play around in our lab with. And the guys thought, hey, wouldn't it be neat if we could have something that's a little bit more substantial, a little bit more broadband, and yet still around the same price range. I believe the soft rock kits run around $40 to $80 if memory serves. I'm not an expert on that specific field, but yeah, so that was the impetus anyways. So we started playing around, looking for integrated solutions. And it turns out there was an integrated circuit on the market that was actually meant for video specific applications. The chip is the RTL2832U. And not to get too technical, but it basically contained all the silicon that we needed on one low-cost integrated circuit, which basically allowed us to manufacture these wonderful SDRs and actually beat the price point that we were aiming for. So yeah, it turned out fantastic for us.
So the other part of this is that on your defined radio, it has the ability through the software to receive at different modalities, FM, AM, sideband, goes to CW. Does it
Right.
creates an oscillation tone then?
Well, that's the fantastic thing about software-defined radio in general, is that you're not doing all the heavy lifting with circuitry. You're doing it all in software. So basically, our software-defined radios, and one of the reasons we can keep the price down, is it has an ADC on there, of course, an analog to digital converter, which converts the analog waves, RF signals, into a digital format which the computer can understand through the USB interface. And then from there, the computer is actually doing all the decoding. So anything that, there's pretty much software written right now to do pretty much any modality, from APCO 25 to AM, FM, of course, all the standard stuff, CW, pretty much anything you can think of it does, including some really high-end stuff like airplane radar, for example, which is called ADS-B. Allows you to track things in the sky. Pretty much anything that you can pull out of the air is decodable in some way or another. So yeah, that's a fantastic thing about software-defined radio in general. And beauty part is that anything that can't be done will eventually be able to be done. And of course, with all of our projects mostly being open source and open hardware, we have a lot of ham operators who write add-ons themselves to kind of extend the functionality of the devices.
I know what I got to give my grandson for his birthday this year, I'm pretty sure. So if I'm a shortwave listener, this thing has got to be the biggest thing since sliced bread, I would think, for SWL.
Yeah, even for guys who have really nice SW rigs, the beauty thing about it is the instantaneous bandwidth. You're looking at about 3.2 megahertz of spectrum at a given time, which on the HF end, of course, is just a massive amount of bandwidth to be looking at a specific juncture. I'm not sure if you guys can see the screen behind me, but let me just double check to make sure. But yeah, it looks like this is set to about 3.2 megahertz right now.
Okay.
So if I just hit play on this, I'm going to mute this so we don't get distracted. But as you can see from the waterfall display, we're looking at a very large range. Right now we're looking at the broadcast FM spectrum. I doubt you guys can actually read the numbers, just so you know what's going on here behind me. But this applies to any, the instantaneous bandwidth applies to any frequency that you're tuned to at a given time. So for 3.2 megahertz of spectrum, I mean, even guys with nice SW rigs, they can look to see exactly where the signals are at a given time, and they can tune their rigs accordingly. And in terms of hunting and pecking for signals, there's just nothing that beats it.
That's amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to open it up to questions from the floor. If anybody else has questions, they'd like to ask Jeff about the software-defined radio. It's just in the back.
Was questioning where the store is.
Okay, they want to know where the store was, or it's just all online purchase, or what?
Yeah, that's correct. Right now, we're online only. We currently sell devices on our website, of course, at NooElec.com. We also have our devices sold at Amazon.com, of course, and we have eBay store as well, in terms of our direct-to-retail access to these sorts of devices. That's correct.
Incredible.
What's the best software to use and how do you get it?
Well, what's the software? What software do you use, and where do you pick that up?
There is a wide range of software available on our website. There's a downloads tab on every single SDR that we sell, which will give you access to the downloads. All of our software that we recommend, pretty much all of it is open source, and most of it is freeware. There's a large range of software applications. I'm a little reluctant to make specific recommendations because I find that everybody has a preference in terms of interface. That being said, in terms of our ham radio base, I believe the most popular would be HD SDR, as well as SDR Sharp. That's SDR pound symbol. Both of those, I believe, are available through links on our website or through a simple Google search as well, of course. They're both free to download and freeware applications.
Okay, excellent. Okay.
I think I saw another
There was
hand
another
back here
hand in the
earlier.
back. Not sure, maybe the question was answered.
What about CPU utilization on your host machine? What kind of a processor do you think we should be using if we're using one or two of these?
Okay, well, the question was about CPU. What kind of processor should you be using? Now, I know you mentioned earlier that it was any version of Windows that was any other version that recognizes the USB. Was that pretty much what that was the limit, right?
No, I would say that there certainly are CPU limitations to a degree. I can say that any modern system, without getting too detailed and technical, will certainly be able to handle the requirements. It's going to depend on how many SDR radios you're running at a given time. Of course, you can plug as many of these things into as many USB ports as you want. And run as many instances of these SDR software that you want. So it's going to be highly contingent on what you're specifically doing with the device. But if we're talking about one single software-defined radio, basically it just has to be able to handle the incoming IQ stream through USB. It essentially is saturated to a USB 2.0 bus. So you're talking about 10 megabits of bandwidth. So, sorry, I'm just trying to calculate this on the fly for you. So, I guess my recommendation would be anything from Intel Core series onward. Anything with about 1.5 gigahertz processor and upward would be able to run this without issue. That being said, it's even compatible with Android tablets and Android phones, modern Android stuff. So the CPU limitations aren't extreme, but they are there. I wouldn't try running this on your 15-year-old 486 laptop or something like that. But other than that, you should be okay.
So you said Android phones is an application similar? Would there be like the Apple i6 or anything like that? Any thoughts about making compatible with the iPhone?
Yeah, there is an iPhone application available. It's a paid application, and because we didn't develop it, I'm a little reluctant to recommend it. I've never tried it myself.
Okay.
But there is an iOS compatible application available. The other problem with iPhone, of course, is the plug-in compatibility. You do require some special adapters because
Right.
Apple has their own ecosystem.
A little proprietary with them.
Right, exactly. So in that sense, we try to steer people toward Android if you have an Android device available. A lot of the newer Android stuff does support USB on the go, which would mean you'd be able to plug in our SDR through the requisite cable, which costs maybe $1 or $2. They're very inexpensive. And in terms of software application for Android, SDR Touch would be our recommendation. It's a low-cost SDR application. And it's pretty fantastic to be able to carry a little device with you, a tiny antenna and an SDR that plugs in, and have a a touchscreen portable wideband scanner at your disposal for less than a couple $100. It's something we couldn't even dream of a couple of years ago, to be honest.
That's amazing. Buddy, you had a...
Yeah, just a really quick one. IT guy talking. Any qualms with 64-bit or 64-bit native?
No, not at all. Most of the SDR applications are completely compatible with 32, 64-bit processors and the ecosystem, so the OS. So no incompatibility issues there whatsoever.
Thank you.
How about like Windows 7, Windows 8, any of those formats? They all work on the
Windows
same?
7, Windows 8 work fine with this? No
Oh
problem?
yeah.
Okay.
Anything from about Windows XP forward, you up to and including Windows 8.1, no issues. Windows Server, yeah, we're good there.
Speaking of, if I may jump in,
Yes.
speaking of Windows, you guys looking at Windows V Next? Windows 10?
I'm sorry, I
Are you looking at Windows 10, the next iteration of Windows? Or are you looking...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We haven't done full compatibility testing yet, but it certainly will be compatible on release as far as I'm aware.
That's great.
Thank you.
A couple more questions, way in the back. Was it? Okay.
Is there any kind of plans on expanding that out to like Bluetooth compatibility?
Oh, that's a good question. Any plans to expanding it out to make it Bluetooth?
No, it's not actually something that I believe is on our timeline. The Bluetooth in terms of, I assume you mean instead of USB, is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
Unfortunately, Bluetooth in its current iteration does not have anywhere near the requisite bandwidth to be able to perform most software-defined radio functions. We're talking about 3 megahertz of instantaneous spectrum times 8-bit. You're talking about quite a bit of bandwidth required. Even USB 2.0, we're really pushing it. The reason USB 2.0 was selected is because USB 3.0 is still not ubiquitous enough as far as we're concerned. We've run into a lot of people not understanding why they wouldn't be able to use this on their standard PC. So we're already pushing the limits quite heavily on USB 2.0, which already has way more bandwidth availability than something like Bluetooth. So unfortunately, it's not something that would be possible at this current juncture.
Yeah, it may be someday. The way things are going, it probably will. In
Yeah,
2 years.
absolutely. As new specifications arise, we'll certainly look into wireless possibilities for sure. But we don't think there's much of a market for a very low bandwidth SDR. Not when the cost savings wouldn't be there.
Yeah, makes sense. Question back.
I just wanted to make sure I understand right, that the compatibility of a laptop, as long as I have 1.5 gigahertz of capability and with the Windows 7 operating system, there's no limitations with the laptop versus a desktop?
There's no limitation between the laptop and the desktop. He's operating Windows 7. You're nodding no. It's compatible.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes. Now we got an Apple on the corner here, so.
This isn't an Apple question. Sorry, hold on. This actually is a Windows specific thing. Do you include the USB driver, or is that something we have to go out and source?
Oh, good question.
Usually kind of a problem when you're dealing with these SDR dongles.
Does it recognize the USB when you plug it in? Does it bring it in as a software internal into the unit itself, or do you have to have a separate driver to recognize the USB?
That's a fantastic question, actually. So, as it stands right now, it is plug and play. However, the devices that we use, the integrated circuit that we use, if you recall, it's actually a video processing integrated circuit. So when you do plug it into Windows, it detects it as a video recording device, which is obviously what we don't want to be using it for. So for modern versions of Windows, like Windows 7, Windows 8, I believe even Windows Vista, it will detect it as a video receiving device. So it does detect as plug and play. Unfortunately, with the incorrect driver, we're working on, we have our own, we're on the USB IF consortium, which means we have a USB vendor ID. Basically what that means is we are in the works of having a plug and play driver available with our own USB ID, so when we plug in our devices, it is plug and play. As it stands right now, the driver has to be installed manually. Now we do have an automated program to do that for you. It's not that complicated, but it does require manual driver installation, and the driver is available for download on our website, again, under the same downloads tab where we find the SDR software.
Okay, good. That's great. I'm glad you
Yeah, that's
asked
great
that, because
question.
that is an issue a lot of the time.
That was,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, that was a good,
Just to interject quickly, we do have, one of the benefits of having, one of the benefits of our current, what's the word I'm looking for? One of the benefits of purchasing with us, I guess I should say, is that we have full support staff available to answer questions. So we do have technical support staff available pretty much 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, sometimes on weekends, available to answer questions. We also have a toll-free number that you guys could call to answer any specific technical questions you may have regarding these sorts of devices. So.
Excellent. There was another question.
yes. I was just gonna ask the question, if I bought the kit, I wanted to get everything. I'm talking about the antenna, the guide, what have you. Does the driver, instructions come with the kit if I have to put them in manually? I guess I'm kind of in a quandary of how I manually put the drivers in. Is it something that you give instructions with the kit if I bought a kit?
Now, can you hear him? Because I'll translate.
No, I don't know. I can't hear
Okay,
anything.
so I think part of the question is that my understanding was you buy that unit, it comes with the little antenna and the connector, the telescoping antenna.
Mhm.
However, if you wanted to hook it to your ham antenna, you're going to have an adapter with an SQ239,
Yep.
which is screw into your coax. So you'd have to order that special from them for a few dollars more or whatever, and that. As far as the USB, installing USB, I think what you were saying was you go out to your website, there's a download there, you have to download it, and basically you'd have to run it, and it would run that USB. Is that correct, Jeff? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I guess it's a two-part question. In terms of the adapters, we have a whole section of adapters and cables on our website. Again, on all of our NESDR series, the connector that's on the device will be listed clear as day on the website. And of course, you want the medium connector to connect to whatever antenna type that you require. Most commonly, of course, SO239 and I guess BNC. So you want to, in this instance, the connector is female MCX. So you want a male MCX to female BNC or female SO239 adapter or adapter cable to connect whatever antenna that you want to connect. That's correct. In terms of the installation itself, it's right on the website. While you're waiting for your device, you click on the downloads tab. You can install. We have an auto installer which will install pretty much everything you need on its own, including the driver application and the software-defined radio application, and instructions on how to do so. And if you do run into problems, again, of course, you can always give us a call or fire up an email to our support staff.
That's great. Now, if you
Did
ordered
that answer your question?
That was my question, yes.
Yeah, you got it. If you ordered the rig itself, the device itself, now if you ordered an additional cable, would you still get the one with the little antenna on it too then, or you?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions from the crowd here? I see no other hands flying. Oh, one more.
Website address.
Oh, the website address. Can you give us your website address?
Yeah, it's NooElec.com, the name of the company.com. So that's November, Oscar, Echo, Lima, Echo, Charlie.com.
Okay, NooElec.com.
That's right.
You're probably going to sell a lot of those tonight, maybe.
Yeah.
Probably going to buy one when I get home. Okay? Jeff, you were awesome. I really appreciate this. What an amazing idea. I was not aware of this. We had one of our hams in the club that actually showed me his software-defined radio, and I said, wow, what's that? And it was one of yours. And so really slick thing. And so I thought, man, that is really neat. And so I appreciate Joe making arrangements for you to do the presentation tonight so we all can get a better idea about this very affordable software-defined radio that does amazing things and has a huge wide spectrum of frequencies you can choose from, and just slicker than all get out. So pretty excited about it. I can see you would be too as a people that build these things. But it's really do appreciate that you taking the time to meet with our club tonight here in Fond du Lac.
Absolutely, it was my pleasure. Norm, Joe, and all the rest of the gents of the club, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, thank you very much.